Good afternoon, folks. Today I wanted to get into the nitty gritty of where is best to retire in Spain. Is it the Costa Blanca or is it the Costa del Sol? Now, that has so many variables and it has so many different things that different people may want. It is impossible to answer, but what I'm going to do and what I'm going to try to do is give you the information that you need for you to make an informed decision, because what someone might prefer, somebody else might not prefer. So the main thing that you need to take from this video is that it depends on what you like, okay? And another thing that I want to say to people is, it's great watching these videos, it gives you an idea, but in all honesty, you need to go to these different places and you need to try them out. And I don't mean go for a holiday, I don't mean go for a week, I don't mean go for 2 weeks, I mean identify some areas. Fine, go on holiday first, that's fine. Identify some areas where you think that you would be happy to retire in the Costa del Sol or the Costa Blanca. Spend a month there in summer and a month there in winter, because the places are different in summer and they're different in winter. And if you're going to live there full time or even half of the year, then you need a full, clear picture. Anyway, let me get into some of the things that might sway you either way. So, the weather. Okay, the weather's a big one. Now, some people say the Costa del Sol has many more sunny days. The Costa del Sol is warmer. Some people will tell you that Alicante is slightly warmer in the winter. I'm going to tell you right now, I've spent time in summer and winter in both places, considerable amounts of time in different years, and it hardly varies. I'm telling you, it hardly varies. It depends where it more depends on where you go in the Costa del Sol or Costa Blanca. So let me give you an example. So in Malaga, for example, Malaga and Alicante have very, very similar climates and very, very similar sunny days per year, right? Now, I know that Sevilla and Granada is not the Costa del Sol, but it's in Andalusia. That will vary, given with Malaga. Sevilla and Malaga will vary much more, because Sevilla, on average, is 3 degrees higher than Malaga. So whether, I'm just going to put it out there, it's not going to make that much of a difference to you where you think, oh, I'd rather be in one or the other. Some years there might be more sun in Alicante, some years there might be more sun in Malaga. Like, it might be a degree warmer one year, it doesn't really matter. They're both brilliant for weather. Okay, the next one is more variety in culture, more variety in places to actually go and visit. So in this context, if you're living on the Costa del Sol, I'm just going to give you examples of the big cities and towns that you can go and visit that's going to give you a real authentic Spanish experience. You've got Granada, you've got Sevilla, you've got Ronda, you've got Cordoba. Obviously Malaga is, you know, you're probably going to be on the Malaga coast anyway. You've got, well, Cadiz isn't Costa del Sol, so we'll say that, but that is just to begin with, okay? And them places you can go, traditional Spanish places, you can go for a few days, you can go for a week, and that is all within, you know, a couple of hours drive at most to Malaga. So what I'm saying is, them kind of experiences, if you want that kind of variety and you want to be able to go off for weekends in different places like that, I think that the Costa del Sol wins in that respect, because of course there are towns and places to visit near Alicante, but Alicante and the Costa Blanca in general, it's just a little bit, you know, it's aimed towards tourism, and there's just a bigger foreign influx. So you know, you've got your places like Benidorm, Torrevieja, you know, all that kind of stuff, which, don't get me wrong, you know, Costa del Sol has those tourist destinations too. It does. It has places like Fuengirola, it's got Torremolinos, it's got all of that kind of stuff, which them kind of places, they have their place. But if you're looking for somewhere to be central, where you can go and visit different places, different cultural, you know, areas of Spain, then in my eyes, the Costa del Sol wins hands down on that one. Okay, now the next thing that you might be thinking about if you are going to retire somewhere, or even if you're just going to live, you know, in Spain for 6 months of the year, you might want to buy a house or rent. You're definitely going to want to rent a property, if not buy. Now, again, it's hard to actually pin down, you know, the difference in price, because some parts of Alicante and some parts of the Costa Blanca are cheaper than certain parts of the Costa del Sol. So it's hard to say the Costa del Sol is cheaper or the Costa Blanca is cheaper, because again, it depends on where you go. However, there are more budget friendly places in the Costa Blanca, and there are more places that are suited for, let's say, a foreign person, you know, an English speaking native. So, you know, you've got all your places like, again, I'm going to mention them again, all through Benidorm, okay, all your coastal towns on Benidorm, Torrevieja, all that kind of stretch. Now, there you can find really reasonable properties, really reasonably priced properties, and they're not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Do they have that on the Costa del Sol? Yes, they do. You've got Fuengirola, Bella Madonna, all that kind of places. The rents are cheap, okay? But again, you are going to have to do your research on that, because you first need to find out where you want to be, and then you need to find out whether you can actually make it work, because the rents in Malaga, okay, are through the roof. In Malaga city centre, they're going crazy, okay? Now, if you go to the west of Malaga, okay, if you go to places like Torrox Costa, if you go to places like Nerja, even Nerja is affordable. Even places like, I mean, you've got Torre del Mar as well, which is also on the west, but Torre del Mar is more of like a Spanish community. So if that's something you want, you can go there. But that west side of Malaga, that is more affordable. And then obviously you have your east side, you know, and you can go as far as talking about living in Marbella, which is absolutely ridiculous prices. So again, it's down to you, and you need to do your research on that. But overall, the Costa Blanca definitely has more affordable places, and it's definitely more foreign friendly in terms of there's a bigger expat community in those places like Torrevieja and the Orihuela Costa, etc. So yeah, that's just something to bear in mind, but I'm going to keep banging on about it. You have to go to these places, you have to speak to estate agents. Don't come to Spain and buy somewhere or move here without doing your own research. Please don't do that, okay? The next thing, I've mentioned Marbella, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is, if you're looking for like high-end living, I'll be honest with you, Marbella is gonna be your go-to, because for high-end living, you know, if you want Gucci, if you want Prada, if you want Rolls Royces, all that kind of stuff, if you're a millionaire, then Marbella is probably going to be the place for you, because really on the Costa Blanca, there's not really anywhere that has that kind of high-end living. So if you're wanting that, I would say Marbella for sure. And then another thing I want to touch on is actually learning the language and integrating into the culture. Where is it easier to do that? Well, in my view, the Costa del Sol, because on the Costa del Sol, for one, they only speak Spanish, okay? Now, in the Costa Blanca, the first language is going to be Catalan, so you're going to have that to contend with. If you're on the Costa Blanca and you're wanting to learn Spanish, okay, then it's going to be more difficult, because you're going to be hearing Catalan and you're going to be like, what does that mean? It's just slightly different, and you're going to get confused, especially if you're a beginner. So learning the language is way easier in the Costa del Sol, way easier. Having said that, they speak so fast that you're going to struggle to actually pick it up. But I speak it when I was in like Catalonia and places like that. I really struggled because they spoke Catalan, and I was like, I've just learned this language and now I've got to try and wrap my head around something else. So that's one thing to think about. But in terms of actually integrating into the community, again, depends where you go, because if you're happy to just integrate into the expat community, there's way more places in the Costa Blanca. There's lots and lots of expat places in the Costa Blanca. There is in the Costa del Sol as well, but Costa del Sol has got a much bigger Spanish contingent there. So again, it all depends on what you're looking for, but be aware of that. If you're wanting to learn the language and you don't know, if you go to the Costa Blanca, they're going to speak Catalan, okay? So you can try and learn them both, but my advice is just learn one, because it's too confusing when you're trying to do both. Just learn one, okay? So the last thing that I'm going to leave you with today is what I said at the beginning of the video. Watching these kind of videos is great. Getting advice off people that have lived in both places, such as myself, is great. That's all well and good. And if you have any questions, please do drop me an email, drop me a comment, whatever. But you need to do your own research, okay? I see so many people coming to live in Spain and they just pick a place because they've been on holiday once, and then when they get here, they're surprised that it's not, you know, what they kind of expected, because living here is different, okay? And on that note, my advice is don't buy straight away. At least rent places, because if it does dawn on you, hey, we might not want to be here now, we might want to go home, or we might want to move to somewhere else in Spain or whatever, then if you've bought somewhere, you're not stuck, but it's going to be harder to move, okay? And realistically, I don't have anything else off the top of my head to add, but I see this at the moment, it's a big thing, and people are choosing Costa del Sol, Costa Blanca, and both places are changing so much, mainly with, you know, prices, and they're basically coming up to scratch with the rest of Europe. I mean, Malaga is soaring, and different places, it's getting more expensive in Spain, that's for sure. So yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on as well is, you probably noticed, I'm not in either of Costa Blanca or Costa del Sol right at this moment in time. I'm on holiday in Ibiza. So but I thought I would do this because, yeah, it's an important subject and it's one that you need to get right. So again, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll put my email down there. Let me know. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you want to see more content from the Costa del Sol and the Costa Blanca to give you more of an idea, hit the subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Adios.